What's up, everybody? Welcome to Off the Rails, a recovery podcast dedicated to ending the stigma of addiction through open discussion on all things recovery related. My name is Mark, and with me always are Dave and Jared. And Dave, can you introduce our next guest for us?
Yeah, of course. We're very stoked to have our next guest on. He's a West Coast boy originally from BC. Played some junior hockey out in the WHL, followed by a couple years of pro. He's joined us to talk about his struggles with addiction, his road to recovery, and some exciting things he's doing for the mental health community. So we're looking forward to this one for sure.
Brady, could you introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, for sure. First off, I apologize to you guys. I was a few minutes late, had some issues with the kids, and I used to have no problem with being late, when my addiction, but now that I'm building my life back up, it's something that's really important to me, is being accountable, being on time, and being present. So my name is Brady Leavold, and I'm really grateful to be here. I'm originally from Port Coquitlam, British Columbia, and grew up, like a lot of kids in Canada, having the dream of playing professional hockey. And, it kind of was the goal originally, but as I started hockey at 3-4 years old, started skating, I fell in love with it. Shortly after that, though, guys, I fell on some childhood trauma. I was sexually abused by an older guy that was a family relative, extended family type deal at a family reunion, and that really pushed me into hockey because hockey was the only place where I didn't have to think about that. And just before that, my mom left my dad to be a single dad, and I always have to say, it's not like I didn't see my mom. I was just with my dad the majority of the time, and so those two kind of compounded each other, and it threw me into hockey, because when I was playing hockey, it was nothing. Like I said, nothing else mattered. It was like being on a drug, right? It numbed me. I didn't have to think about anything. And so because of that, I loved the way that hockey made me feel. I was doing it all the time, and I got to be pretty good at it. The skills developed, but my mind didn't. And that was always what hindered me in my hockey career. I mean, made so many mistakes throughout junior, through pro, quitting. And on the outside, people are looking at me like, hey, this guy's a problem. This guy's a loser. How could he be doing that? Why would you quit? Like all this stuff. And multiple times, not just once or twice. And for whatever reason, I got more chances than most guys. But, I didn't understand myself. People certainly didn't understand me. And I wasn't ready or willing or even I didn't know how to talk about any of this stuff. I never told anybody about that trauma from that guy ever, period, until I was 26 years old. So, I started to, start to contemplate my own life a lot. My first year of junior, and throughout pretty much my entire junior career, you think, hey, here's this kid, he's 16, 17 years old, playing in the pinnacle of junior hockey. And I won this with Current Broncos Rookie of the Year at 17, and my first full season, because I quit at 16 and came back at 17, left for a mental health leave of absence, then won the Rookie of the Year, though still. And 18 years old, I ended up quitting the team 7 games into the year, and ended up going back and had a bunch of stuff happen. But, basically, it wasn't a very good feeling, and hockey wasn't working anymore, right? Hockey wasn't working as that drug, or that painkiller is what I want to call it, because it was. But now I was moved away from home, and hockey was stressful. I had a lot of anxiety surrounding that, the pressures of everything. And now all of a sudden I didn't even want to go to the rink. I didn't want to play hockey. I wanted to do something else. And that's where alcohol really became prominent in my life. I started to drink a lot. And so I don't know, I'll stop there, because if I don't stop, you guys will never get a word. If you want me to carry on with that, but if there's something else you want me to touch on quickly, just let me know, boys.
So you said you started drinking. Did you find that kind of was like transition? Because you said like the hockey was able to numb you, and then you kind of transition into drinking to do the same?
Yeah, like drinking for me, it's so readily available everywhere, right? As we know. And, to me, all drugs are bad, but alcohol is a drug, period, and destroys more families and ruins more lives, I think, than all the others combined. I know that fentanyl and that is just crazy right now, taking people out, but alcohol is so widely accepted. And so I know there's a lot of people that drink for confidence, and they drink and they feel a little more confident. That was never my issue. It was like, I drank and I would just keep drinking until I would I rarely blacked out regardless of how much I drank, but I would just keep drinking. And even at a young age, whether it be at high school parties, hockey parties, I always was seeming to be one of the last, if not the last, a few of us always that were pushing it. And it was more and more and more. And, nothing until it was all gone. And that was right away from, I think, like 16 years old, 15 years old, I started to be like that. But the other side of that was, like, drugs were never an option for me, like, period. I'm a hockey player. Drinking's okay, but never drugs. And of course I shouldn't say of course, but I had used cannabis, marijuana at that point. But I mean, like, hard drugs, like anything more than alcohol or cannabis, I'm not touching it. And that was something that was like a pretty strict boundary for me. And after my 17-year-old year, when I won the Swift Current Broncos Rookie of the Year, I remember winning the award and I'm on the stage, like, at the year-end banquet, and I'm just hammered. Like, I'm hammered drunk, 17 years old, and it's all the season ticket holders, all the, the corporate sponsors, all the, prominent people in the great town of Swift Current. I mean, I wasn't the only one that was drunk. It was our team, like, pretty much that was drunk. Everyone was drunk, and we weren't making the playoffs. And I remember it was like the last 4 days, I just got, like, hammered before coming back to British Columbia to go back to high school and to finish high school in BC, because I'd been in Swift Current for the majority of the year. Now I have to transfer back to my high school where all my friends are, and I'm coming back. I basically had one class. It was physical education, and that was the only class I had to go to when I got back. I had it pretty easy as a hockey player. They just, honestly, guys, they back then, at least, they would, cut corners for you or whatever. And, as a kid, it was not good for me moving forward. But at that time, I was like, this is great. This is great. Like, oh, everyone loves me and all this stuff. And it was really dangerous, right? Looking back on it. But I carried that mentality because I was really starting to hurt in Swift Current. And I came back, and I remember, and then I'm starting to go to school, like, drunk when I'm back in BC, because I only have this one class, and I'm, like, trying to encourage my friend, like, come on, it's our last year. Like, let's just party, skip your class. Let's drink. Let's get hammered. Right. And then I started to drink NyQuil. I just remembering this now. This is something that I'm just remembering. I was drinking and smashing back NyQuil at night. And, and that carried on. Like, I was looking to drink every single day until leading up to, it was about mid-July. I went to this country music festival called Merritt Mount Music Festival. It's it'd be like Boots and Hearts up here in Muskoka or whatever, that type of deal where, people are camping, it's partying. I'm, just about 18 years old, and I get there, and, I had more beer and alcohol in the back of my truck. It probably could have killed me. And I was going there to drink. Right. And I drank so much the first couple of days, but what happened was that people around me and people that were older than me and some hockey players that I looked up to that were now in pro hockey, they were using ecstasy. And I was really turned off at first. I was like, hey, like, no way. But by the second day, I'm like, hey, looks like they're having a really good time. Like, and they're playing in, they played games in the NHL. Like, they got a good job. They got whatever. It's not that bad, right? Maybe I can handle it. And I made the decision to try it. And that broke down that barrier for me. And, instantaneously, I loved it. Right. I thought that was the answer. I thought ecstasy was the answer. So now I didn't really care so much about the drinking, though I would drink. I came back from that music festival and used ecstasy every single day up until the time when I left for Swift Current. I go to Swift Current, stayed there for 7 games, quit, come back, play in the BC Hockey League. I got paid an astronomical amount of money at 18 years old to come play for this team in the BC Hockey League. And I used every single dollar of that they gave me to, get drugs. And by New Year's of 2006 or like 2005 going into 2006, I'm now doing my first line of cocaine. Right. And then it was, okay, well, now cocaine's the answer. And I binged on coke for the next 2 years while I was, anytime that I could, while still playing hockey, and went back to Swift Current and went to Kelowna, had a really good year. Actually took a year off the drugs, drank quite a bit there, but Yeah, like it was a really tough situation. And all the while I was like trying not to tell anybody and trying to deal with it on my own. And it's not like I wanted to be doing that stuff. I was just hurting so bad inside. And I just didn't want to have to feel like, you guys know how it goes, right? Carrying all that stuff around and feeling all the guilt and shame and the pressure of hockey. Like if anyone finds out my hockey career is over, there's no question. When in retrospect, right, I would have been way better off just trying to address these issues back then, because doing it on my own, I ended up burning my entire life down, not just losing my hockey career, but I ended up losing absolutely everything in almost my life on numerous occasions. So that was the beginning. Like that's how it happened for me, was to break down that barrier and just being around people and saying, hey, it's not that bad. And that's just the beginning of my addiction. I mean, this is just scratching the surface, because it gets so much worse from here. And I never thought, right, I would do ecstasy, never thought I would do coke. I certainly never thought I'd become an intravenous drug user for like 10 plus years. So, and everything. So pop in. I'm sorry, guys.
I was going to ask you about the pressure of hockey. Do you think that had a impact on the drinking and the drugs as well as the childhood trauma? Like I couldn't imagine being under that much pressure and stress to be scared to I don't know, get cut from a team or fail people or have a bad game or something like that. Like that would be difficult and hard to handle. So I don't know if that had any impact on it as well, or
100%. Like there's absolutely no question about it. Pressures for me were maybe a little bit different. I mean, I experienced all of what you're talking about. I was really hard on myself. I was, I don't know how to say it, but, back then, my skill set, I believe that my skills and the way that I could play when I was on, if I could find a way to be that player and be focused all the time, there's no doubt in my mind I would have had a very successful hockey career. And I used to hold a resentment against guys because I couldn't watch hockey for like, I don't know, 12, 13 years. I couldn't even turn the TV on because it's all the guys I played with and against, guys that I fought and beat up. I'm like, I'm tougher than that guy. I had more points than that guy in junior. I had this. And I was always being like, why? But it took me a long time. It seems pretty naive to think about it now, but it took me a long time that it's not has really nothing to do with the skills. Like we're all pretty much right there. I mean, with the exception of a few phenoms like Connor McDavid and this, but when you get to a certain level, there's not that much of a gap between guys, like the top end guys, yes, but the third, fourth line guys in the NHL could be switched out from anyone in the American League at any time. But it's all about how you perform and where your mind is at. And are you dedicated to the game? And it's not that I didn't want to be dedicated to the game. It's just that I was so mentally ill and that I couldn't focus on hockey. I didn't want to be there because life was happening. Like I just couldn't shut my mind off. And like you talk about the stresses and the pressures, right? I remember being a rookie in the WHL and already being super homesick. I ended up, like I mentioned earlier, had to take a mental health leave of absence, right? We didn't call it back then. This is 2004, like October 2004, maybe November. And, I just told Dean Chenault, the head coach or the assistant coach for the Toronto Maple Leafs now, he gave me more chances than anybody, but I just told him, I was like, I got to go home. Like, I gotta go home. So I went home for a few days and, that wasn't really explained well to the team. Like nobody was saying like, oh, this or that. It just left, speculation. And so when I came back, I started to get picked on a lot, right? Like I got the nickname baby. Every day I was like, go home, baby. You're a quitter. You're just this, you're that. They started to haze me a lot. And, and I just, and then I started to hate it even more. So I was like scared to go to the rink. An example something that I had to deal with my first year was, the veterans on the Swift Current Broncos. And this isn't a one-off, and I'm not knocking the Swift Current Broncos because this is the way it was back then for a lot of teams. And we had vets in the back of the bus. It was like after 11 o'clock, you can't even go back there you can never take a number 2, but you can't even go back there to pee after 11 o'clock on a road trip. And I remember having to pee so bad and being so scared because these guys used to, like, I'm not kidding, they make you run the gauntlet on the bus, hitting me with dress shoes and pillowcases and stuff. I remember I got a concussion from one, like just stupid stuff, being locked in the bathroom naked with 4 other guys, like all that stuff happened to me. And, I remember sitting there though, having to pee so bad. And like the lights were out in the bus because we lost, can't even turn the lights on in the bus. So it's pitch black. I can't go to the back. I'm sitting at the front. And I'm like, oh, I got this bottle here. So I'm peeing in this bottle, but I can't see. And I literally peed all over myself. 17 years old. I'm playing in the Western Hockey League and I'm peeing on myself because I can't even go to the back of the bus. And then you expect me to compound it with everything else. Like, I don't know how I didn't kill myself, and I wasn't the only one going through it. Maybe I got it the worst. Maybe my mental state was the worst of anybody on my team, but I never was able to share this with anybody. And Dean Chanel brought in an amazing sports psychologist named Max Offenberger, basically just because I was having so many issues. He also opened it up to everybody on the team, but I think he just did that, made it more about the team because he didn't want to single one guy out.
Like nowadays, you're starting to hear so many stories about people getting hazed and stuff in junior hockey and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, do you think mental health was kind of on the back burner back then? Because it's getting a lot bigger now. But even when I was younger, I don't remember ever hearing anything really about mental health, especially with men.
You're absolutely right. And, you mentioned it has gotten better. I believe it has. I haven't been around hockey for that long now. I took like a 10-year leave of absence. And now that COVID's just opening, I've just been able to get in and around and actually see what's going on. I mean, I can see on social media, but it's one thing to get out there and have conversations with people and seeing where they're at with their coaches, with the parents. I mean, it's not just players, right? It's coaches, it's parents. Like, we all play a part, and it's not just hockey. I mean, it's, if you're a parent of somebody, like, you can't just expect, maybe I'll get into that after, but yeah, it's tough, right? Like, back then it was like, suck it up, get back out there, tough guy mentality. Any sign of weakness is you're a failure. That's why I believe, hockey players, when we look at hockey players versus other athletes, in my opinion, maybe with the exception of MMA fighters like Brandon Gilmore and others like boxers and stuff, where you're actually fighting, you're in combat. But in a sports setting, we look at hockey players and they push through more than any other sports. No disrespect to any other athletes, but you look at a soccer player, they get this and they're diving. Basketball players, even football players, like, they're big, they're tough. Yes, they play through injuries, but hockey guys will literally sit on the bench and get sewn up on the bench with no freezing. I've done it, right? Like, teeth knocked out, and I'm picking my teeth up off the ice and giving them to the trainer and going back out next shift, so like, I'm very grateful to have kind of had that mentality in a sense, because I believe it helped me get through my addiction. But on the other side to that, like, it's pretty dangerous, especially for young men, right? Young women who are, playing hockey and if they're moving away from home. And, we often forget that hockey is just a sport. It's supposed to be fun, and it turns into a business. And then the players become commodities, basically a number. And, I can just use my experience, for example, is I would have died for any one of my teammates. I used to fight for my teammates. I used to, I would have done anything for them. And I had teammates that would have done the same for me. And at the end of the year, when, season's over, and if you're moving on to a different team, or if you retire from hockey, and you don't have that network around, it becomes very difficult for a lot of people, right? You just lose yourself. That's certainly what happened to me, and has happened to so many. I know of 35 hockey players, junior and pro, that have overdosed primarily from fentanyl. So, some of them I talk about openly, some of them I don't, because the family members haven't addressed it. But I believe there was 15 junior and pro hockey players in 2021 that died of overdose. We just had another one 2 days ago. So I think we do need to be talking about this stuff, and I just wish that people, certainly in the hockey community and everywhere, but would just humanize it all a little bit more. And I wish we would lift each other up. And I love the fact that, like, you guys is opening this podcast is dedicated to ending the stigma surrounding addiction. That is music to my ears, because we talk mental health all the time, but because it's still not there, but it's more easily talked about than addiction, right? We know this, right? Mental health is like this buzzword that people are feeling more empowered, but addiction's still like that black cloud, like, oh, what addiction? Oh, I don't want to talk about that. So I really appreciate you guys doing that. And I've, really started to pay more attention to this over the last few months too, more focusing on addiction, because I believe that there is nobody that doesn't have, that is, suffered or suffering an addiction that doesn't have an underlying mental illness or mental health issues. Maybe it's not diagnosed, but some sort of mental health issue going on. So for me, the two are one and the same. Doesn't mean if you're mentally ill or have mental health issues, you're going to be an addict, but the addiction certainly is the underlying circumstance for feeling, mentally tired or mentally ill. And we're just trying to find something to make us feel better, right? Like that's the underlying of it all. So for me, when I talk mental health, I hear addiction, and I'm just so appreciative of you guys doing this. And I know you're helping so many people. And it's not easy work, right? As you guys know, to do this and be vulnerable and to put it out there. But I'd like to ask you guys something, maybe get you guys in on the conversation, is how has it been for you since, being able to be vulnerable, not necessarily maybe here on this podcast, but it's a piece of it, but with your family members and friends, because for me, it brings brought an added level of accountability. And I believe it's been a big reason of why I've been able to maintain my recovery. So I'm just would love to throw that back at you guys, if you don't mind. Like, I just, it's huge, right?
Yeah, I think that's an incredible question, because I really think in order to create the change that we want, we need to be vulnerable, and putting our stories out there does hold us accountable. And I've been really enjoying it, and I kind of want to put our stories out there and share and create that vulnerability so that other people can come forward and get the help before they go down certain paths. And that's ideally what the change we want to see.
I was just going to say, for me too, it's just been so nice. I was a little hesitant at first, all those emotions come through when you're putting everything out there on social media, right? And part of the fear was, if I fail or whatever, more people are going to know about it. But it definitely has helped me more accountable. And selfishly, to be honest, doing these interviews with people like yourself or anyone we've had on, I find them just as rewarding and motivating or helpful in the recovery process as going into 3 meetings, to be honest. It's so although we're helping people, it's definitely helping us. I can speak for myself anyways, big time with the recovery. And so yeah, it's been awesome.
It's great, right? And I think there's more to be said about that too. And you say that, selfishly speaking, and I feel the exact same way you do about the stuff that I've been doing. And as much as I love to help others and it's helping others, it at the underlying core, I can say it helps me too, right? Even if I'm talking to somebody and working through what they're going on, and I'm not focusing on myself, right? That to me was a huge problem, was me. People used to call me selfish when I was in my addiction, but I always thought it was unselfish, because even when I had lots of stuff, I was giving it to people anyways. I'm like, how could I be selfish when I'm giving, even when I have whatever, I'd be walking down Hastings Street in Vancouver, just throwing stuff at people. Oh, you're sick. Oh, you're this here. You need this. I didn't care. It wasn't just about me. I'm like, but at the core of it, it was selfish, because I still was thinking about me. And as soon as I was able to stop doing that and actually assert myself into others' lives and be of service in some way and listen to others, it started to allow me to heal in my own mind and in my heart and in my soul. There's something very powerful about that. And if anyone is watching or listening to this that isn't in recovery for some reason, if you're here, thank you, watching, listening. Even if you're in recovery, get out there and do some service work. Honestly, go out and do something just for the greater good, not because you think it's gonna impact your life in a positive way or you're going to get a gain out of it or anything like that. Just go do something and be of service and see how it feels. Because for me, and I know a lot of people, there's nothing better, and it's just about community. And that's sort of what I was able to do. But I want to kind of get into how bad my addiction got just a little bit, if you don't mind. Just to give people kind of a perspective of where it went, because I alluded to it earlier. Unless there's some you guys have it pressing on your mind and you can hop in here and we can get to that after. It's completely up to you.
I got one question, just quick. Do you find when you're talking about your stories, like reliving your past, does it get easier or is it still hard for you? Because I know you're pretty like outspoken about your journey, and I think it takes a lot of courage to do that. So even when
go ahead, sorry. Here's the thing. Go. I'm done.
even even like when I'm talking about my stuff, I still like I don't give a fuck really what anyone thinks anymore, or I try to tell myself that, but I do, but I don't. So I was just wondering if it's hard like that for you, or if you're just
so for me personally, it's pretty easy. Like it gets easier for me, and I'll tell you why. I don't say that. I'll help you guys understand why it's easy for me and why I feel like I don't really have a choice. When I got her, so my addiction took me to some pretty bad places. I was, signed with the Tampa Bay Lightning after my year in Kelowna, even after having the most disastrous junior career ever, period. I'm sure of it. I got 2 girls pregnant, quit 3 times, was using drugs. Everybody knew, drinking, all this stuff. I ended up carving out a pretty good year my last year and signed with the Lightning. And, you'd think that leading into that, I'd be training and everything else, but that's when I got more money and that's when I got more into the coke and everything else. Well, it didn't take much. I ended up losing my hockey career and losing it all. And I'm going to answer your question here in a second. I'm going to tie it all in. So, I ended up blowing my knee out at my first year pro because I didn't train all summer. And now I'm playing in the American Hockey League and these guys are men. It's not junior. And I blew my knee out and I got prescribed Oxycontin. And, I knew what it was. If I sat here and told you guys I didn't know what it was and I didn't know that it was addictive, I'd be lying to you because I saw people that I knew that were doing, but I didn't really stop to think about it. Like, oh yeah, well, they're just addicted to it. I see them. I remember being at my friend's house one time. He was on the couch. He's dope sick. First time I ever saw anybody dope sick. I was like, oh, I don't know what the hell that is. Like, whatever, like no big deal. Not going to happen to me anyways. I didn't even stop to think, right? Started to take these pills and, sure, I had the knee injury, but a lot of people, I think generally speaking, I certainly didn't know at the time. You think of painkillers, you think of physical pain, right? But I didn't realize how great these pills were on emotional pain. So now all of a sudden it wasn't even about the knee pain anymore. I take these pills and I'm like, holy shit. Like this, I remember the first time I take it, and I've shared this story a few times in the past. The very first time I took an oxy, I didn't even eat it. Like I crushed it up and snorted it because I was doing so much coke at the time. And I'm sorry if I'm triggering anybody. I just speak very candidly, and I did it that way. And I remember throwing up into the toilet, thinking to myself, like, you think you're puking, it's uncomfortable, but I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is it. Like, this is it. Like, I feel amazing. Even though I'm throwing up, like, I'm not thinking about anything. And so that took me to a life of heroin and homelessness. And to answer your question, I ended up in jail. I've spent 3 years of my life in jail. The first time I went for 2 years straight. And while I was in there, the biggest newspaper in Vancouver did a couple news stories on me, like, former hockey pro sentenced to blah, blah, blah in jail. And it was like front page news, right? So it didn't really leave me much of a choice, like, if I was going to turn my life around, like I need to address this, like I need to, if like I wanted there to be another ending to it. Like at the time, I didn't care. I was like, oh, whatever, who cares? I'm never going to get better. Right. But as I started to make the shift just over 2 years ago, and we can get into that more if you want, a lot of the stuff was already out there. Like, a lot of the crimes that I'd committed and a lot of shameful things. Certainly there was some stuff in there that people didn't know, like the trauma and other things. And there's still a lot that people don't know. Right. but it didn't really leave me much of a choice. It was either I can address it and be honest about this and help people understand, or I can just let people speculate for the rest of their lives. Or, I mean, it's not like I was that important. It's not like people were talking about it, but certainly people in my community were always, talking about it and whatever, and see stuff on social media, them reposting it. Oh, this is such a sad story. How did this happen? Blah, 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 all this stuff. And always the questions like how, what's going on, what, this, why. So what that does is it leaves people, whether you're a hockey player, whether it's just, Jimmy next door and his family, just dealing with his family members, it leaves it open to speculation, especially when you've lived a life and people can clearly see that you're gone down this life of destruction. So for me, and I thought of these three things today is like, do you have it? Like HAV, honesty, accountability, and vulnerability. Like that's the three things. And I just came up with this morning. Like, so for me, it was like, I got to get honest, right? I gotta have accountability, and I gotta be vulnerable, like regardless of how it feels. It didn't mean that I need to come on a podcast or do it publicly or anything like that. That's not what I'm telling people to do, but it's, the people around you, at least for me, I lied to everybody, right? I didn't want people to know anything I was lying right from 5 years old, covering stuff up, pretending to be anybody I had to. It didn't matter if I was a hockey player, again, try to be like them. I go to jail, I became the jail guy, right? Like now I'm running ranges in jail and doing different things, like so much stuff. I became, the drug dealer because I'm in that life. Now I'm going to go do drug collections. Like I did it all. I was just trying to fit in and make sure that nobody really knew who Brady was, right? And so to get to your question, right, I felt like if I was really going to do this, and if I don't mean like by this, I don't mean, my podcast or anything. Like if I'm going to do this and remain, in recovery and actually have any sort of chance of having a life, then, I needed to share my story. And that, started with my family members and helping my parents understand, like, okay, this is why, this is, here I am, this is what happened. I'm not blaming you guys or anything like that, but here's what happened, childhood trauma, different things. And then, people can help understand better, and they come around and they support you better and everything else. So I understand it's really hard for people, and it's shitty because this world is so judgmental, and I still have people that, they're judging me every day. There's no question about it. But at the end of the day, it's none of my business what these people think of me. It really isn't. And it shouldn't affect me. It's easy to say because it still does sometimes. But I know that at the end of the day, I have to be okay with myself. It doesn't matter, for me to be okay with myself is back to honesty, accountability, vulnerability. Like, can I put my head down today at the end of the day and know that I was the best person that I could possibly be? Sure, maybe I made some mistakes, but did I lie? Did I steal? Did I cheat? No, right? And like, it doesn't matter. People can judge me on my past or judge me and say, oh, why is he saying that? Or he's not doing this, or he's not doing that. He shouldn't be doing that. It's like, well, guess what? Like at the end of the day, I'm not sticking a needle in my arm 50 times a day anymore. And here I am, and I'm not perfect. Nobody is. And as soon as we all realize that and understand that everybody will be going through different things at different times, instead of pointing the finger and judging them and trying to make them feel shitty about it, especially when we're talking addiction, like typically in like our society just casts addicts out. It's like, we don't even want anything to do with them. And it's not the people's fault. It's not. It's the fact that there is not enough education around it, not just for people so they don't do drugs. It's for people, how do you deal with a loved one or a son or a daughter or a friend, like whatever, that is addicted to drugs, so that people have a better understanding of how to go about managing this. And so that's like a big piece of what I look to be doing in the future. And of course, my focus right now is puck support in the hockey community, but my passion is being on the front lines of addiction and trying to find solutions. Doesn't matter if you played hockey or if you're homeless pushing a cart, you have a piece of my heart. I look at you the same. It doesn't matter. And there's so many people that I met through homelessness, through jail, many of which are no longer here, some of whom are still struggling. But, of course, there's shitty people everywhere, but there's a lot of good people who just need a hand up and sometimes never had a chance. And people don't understand how to help them. And I think we need to do a better job at that. And it starts within our communities, and we can look to the governments and be like, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. sure, we need them to do more, but the response and the onus lies on us, like within our communities, to try to do the right thing, to try to get educated so that we can be better members of society to lift others up, if that makes any sense at all, guys.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
I was going to ask you about, your early 20s, let's say, to when you end up being homeless, that stretch. What was the family dynamic like with like, when I know you said you hit it a lot and stuff like that early on? Was there a time when they started realizing, when that relationship, obviously you ended up homeless, it got severed? I don't know if you want to talk about that or.
Yeah. I have no issue talking about anything. It's a really freeing feeling, and kind of ties into the question that you guys asked before, is, it's a big reason I don't have anything to hide. And, and for me, that means to anybody, I'll go right up to somebody and and we get into a conversation, and, 2 minutes into it, I'm rolling my sleeves up and showing them my track marks to just show them the impact of how far you can go. Cause they start hearing about hockey or whatever, people's eyes light up. When you tell them you're a pro hockey player. I don't agree with it, but it's just the way it was. It was like, yeah, I used to be a pro hockey player. And they're like, oh, well, this and this. I'm like, yeah, but look. And then they're like, what? So it's a really freeing experience. But my family dynamic kind of shifted when I was 18, when I came back from Swift Current. Like, my dad's a retired fire captain. He's a scout in the WHL still for the Saskatoon Blades. And, I came back and was running amok, living in the house, using drugs, stealing, doing whatever. And I actually got kicked out of my house when I was 18, went and lived with my friend. And, so that was really the first time that I became homeless. I mean, I wasn't homeless on the street. I went and lived with a friend, but it was the first feeling of, like, not really having a place to call home. And it wasn't really a good feeling, but I don't blame my dad or anything. I was not willing or ready to be helped. He tried to help me. He tried to do this. And I'm like, no. And I would just take off because I wasn't willing to deal with it. And I'm like, see you later. By the time I got to be homeless, and I was, I don't know, 26 or something like that. My dad and I's relationship, from the time I was, I would say 25 up until 2 years ago, was awful. And we were best friends when I was growing up. He was my ride or die. Like, he did everything for me. He's an amazing guy, but our relationship was severed. He basically told me he can't help me anymore. And 1 year he gave me like $130,000 in e-transfers. I'm calling him with stories like, oh, this, oh, that. Sometimes they're true, right? Being kidnapped, I'm going to be tortured. That did happen once, right? But then after that, I'm starting to use it more, and I'm getting like thousands and thousands of dollars from him, just e-transfers, and calling him. I'm pushing him to the point where he's like having almost like minor heart attacks. He's in the hospital, but I'm still asking him for money, because I couldn't stop. And he actually retired from the fire service like 3 years early, because he was going to so many overdose calls, and he was just paranoid that he was going to go to a call and it was going to be me, And so our situation, our family situation, was not good at all. He was feeling a lot of shame. I'm sure he's, prominent hockey scout, and everybody knew the story, and having to face wherever he went, everywhere he went in our hometown. He's being questioned, or Brady did this, or Brady owes me money, or whatever. And it was tough, right? And so when I got arrested, my dad didn't come see me for a year. It took him a year to come to jail to see me, although he was at all my court appearances with my mom. Was the only time I really saw them together. I actually made a joke. I said, if I knew it was this all it was going to take to get you guys back together, I would have went to jail a long time ago, right? They didn't think that was too funny with the first time my dad's sitting on the other side of the glass. But I mean, whatever. But it took him a year. Yeah, he didn't answer any of my letters or anything or anything. And it's tough because as family members, and I have kids, right? They're young, and I pray that they never go through anything like this. But I think it's really important for people, and especially the parents, to understand that sometimes you can't be the one. Like, you can't, just because they're your kid, you cannot be the one to pull them out of this. And sometimes you do need to take a step back and either let them figure it out on their own, or allow them to have other sources of support. And it's really tough, but it was probably the best thing that my dad did for me. as hard as it was for both of us. And it could have went the other way where, you know, I could have ended up dying, but I wasn't changing with all the support that he offered me anyways. He had to take a step back for his own mental health and his own well-being because it was killing him, right? I was, you know, texting him every day, this, I need that, this. So like, I can imagine what that would be like. And so it took a while, right? And got out of jail after 2 years, and I overdosed like almost instantaneously on my mom's front lawn. And then that was it. And then they sent me out to Ontario, like where I am now. And of course, my addiction followed me out here. I ended up in jail and out here as well. And, you know, so I didn't really talk to him again that entire time I was in jail here. He wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't do anything. When I got out, he barely talked to me. I used for like another 2 months when I got out this time back in November 2019. So it was like December, January I used, and then February 8th was the last time 2020 that I used hard drugs. And so I remember calling my dad and telling him I was going to start this podcast. And he's like, I don't know if that's a good idea. Like he was just so like, cause I had failed at everything that I'd done. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I had all these hopes, like tried so many times. I went to rehab like 10 times, like 10 detoxes, like was in the psych ward for a year because I tried to commit suicide, and not a year straight, like 6 months, get out for a bit, go back for 3, get out for a bit, back in for 3, just so we can clarify that. But it took a while, but I'm happy to say that today, like my dad is proudly wearing puck support in all the rinks that he's going to, and handing out cards and getting me speaking engagements. And, you know, we can call and have a conversation about, you know, life. I'm not looking for anything or calling in a crisis, although I still have in a couple situations like, oh, Dad, my car broke down and I don't have the $1,000 to fix it, but I'll pay you back. And, you know, he's been able to help a couple times in the last 2 years, but you know, it was work to pay him back. Right. And so it's just a different aspect. I never thought that we would be able to be, you know, friends again, be a father son again. We haven't seen each other in a few years because he hasn't come out here yet, but I know he's planning a trip soon. And yeah, I think it's important for people to understand that, you know, an addiction, at least for me, I forgot just how much of an impact I had on others' lives, right? Like it hurt them too. And just because I get clean and I'm doing well doesn't mean that they have to forgive me or believe in me or come back around. That's again, that the onus lies on them. And I don't want to say onus, but the decision lies on them. And we have to accept that as addicts and say, hey, we made these choices and sometimes things take time. I always wanted everything now, right? Like when I go into recovery or whatever, like that's why, you know, drugs, I was the, you know, IV drug user because, you know, the other ways weren't quick enough. It was like everything now, and recovery was no different. It's like, okay, I went to rehab for 30 days. I'm out. Everybody trusts me, right? Come on, I'm getting this. Like, you got to support me, right? Because now I'm good. And that's not how it works. And so this time around, I just started to put my head down and just put one foot in front of the other, not expecting anything from anyone except for myself. I had to answer to myself every single day and make the right decision for myself. And regardless of all the right decisions I made, doesn't mean that anything is going to happen. You know, people have to come back. I still have friends. I have 2 kids that I haven't spoken to in 7 years. I built this life where I feel like, you know, I'm doing like amazing. I'm in a place where I never thought I could be. And I don't mean I'm like amazing because of the stuff I'm doing. I mean, like, I know that for me, it's incredible just to know that I'm myself, that like I can be my authentic self. I'm not trying to pretend to be the hockey player in the dressing room or the jail guy or this. Like, no, I'm just myself. Take me or leave me. I'm clean now and I'm finding my way, right? But it's really difficult because, you know, there's still a lot of relationships and a lot of people that I hurt, a lot of people that I let down, people that I miss, some people that I've accepted that may never be in my life again. And I just have to own that, accept what I've done and move on, because life is not stopping for anybody. And I'm not going to stop and sit here and feel sorry for myself. I'm just going to pick myself up and keep going. That was something that it took me a long time to do. But I believe anybody can do it. So, you know, we're all living proof here that, you know, we do recover.
Brady, I got two questions for you. One, what was your detox like? And 2, how do the conversations with your kids go? How I find that interesting.
Yeah. Detox, which time? Because I can't tell you.
The final one.
Yeah, the final one. It was rough. It was rough. As we talked about earlier before we started, cannabis was huge. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I abused cannabis while I was going through my detox process this time. Like instead of, using hard drugs, I would just, using cannabis, and it would help a little bit of relief. But I mean, I've detoxed, and I'm not kidding you guys. I would say like over 50 times. I'm not kidding. I've done it everywhere, every way you can think of, with every medication or no medication, on a jail cell floor, in a detox, in my mom's house, at, my friend's house, in and out of the bath, all this stuff, not sleeping. Like I can't tell you how horrible the detox process is. But I knew, like, actually at the time, my girlfriend had just gotten pregnant. And I had a couple kids back home that like I mentioned earlier, that I haven't talked to, and I lost them, right? I lost everything. They're with their mom, and I raised them till they were 6 and 7, and I haven't seen them for the last, 7 years, right? So they're like almost 14 and 13 now. And, it was tough. And so when my girlfriend now got pregnant, I knew that I had to do something. I was like, I'm not going to do this again to another kid. There's no way, right? There's no way. I loved being a dad. I think I'm an amazing dad. People would question, like, I don't think I was an amazing dad while I was in addiction, but at my core, always wanted to be a dad, always took pride in being a dad, and wanting to be there. And so that was a big thing for me, was her getting pregnant. But I also knew that just because I was having another kid, it wasn't going to keep me clean, right? The conversations I've had with my kids, the two that I haven't spoken with, they've been very minimal. I actually haven't spoken to my daughter. She's the oldest, at all. She doesn't want anything to do with me. My son has reached out to me periodically. Sadly, though, he always ends it with like, "Oh, mom knows I'm talking to you now. I got to block and delete you now. Bye." And I'm like, well, it's tough. I don't know. I don't know how to approach that, or what the right answer is to say, to the kids. But I think when they get to a certain age, right, and this is not just for my kids and all kids, and even if you're not going through addiction, I just think as parents, I think we need to be more honest with our kids. Like, I think you need to help them understand a little bit better. Pretending like this stuff isn't happening, or pretending like this stuff doesn't happen in the world, isn't going to protect my kids. It's not going to protect your kids. It's not going to do anything. And so it goes back to I really think trying to find the right way to help them understand the best that they possibly can, and meet them where they're at, depending on what age they are, if that makes sense. Like, it just goes back to, like, I think, like, our school systems are so flawed, like here in Canada, at least, and I'm sure the States is the same. I remember, what is it, like 2 days a year, you're talking about addiction or something like that in this class, and it's like in one ear and out the other. Yeah, but those people are losers, never going to happen to me. Like, why are we not, as a society, doing more to educate our parents, our kids, our society as a whole, on just what real life is like? It's not just addiction. It's about managing money. It's about being an adult. Like, I just feel like I wasted so much time in school. Like, it didn't teach me anything about real life. Like, it taught me how to be a shitty person, in and around that. Be lazy, try to find shortcuts. I wasn't engaged. Like, they throw a blanket over everybody, and it's like, if you can't remember, all this information for this test, you're a failure. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, how does that make any sense, especially in this day and age when everyone's just Googling everything anyways? Why the hell do I need to remember it? Just a small example. It's like, I really wish in a society we would stop trying to throw one blanket over everybody for everything. And that goes with school, certainly addiction, as we talked about earlier before the show. Not every one way for something is going to work for everybody. And I just think, I just would like to see there be a major shift in the way that we do everything, because I believe by doing that, it's going to minimize the casualties to suicide, overdose, and those who are suffering on a daily basis. Always maybe one more time away from losing their life, right? Like, setting people up for success. Like, we can really do a better job at that, right? And I just there's so many people hurting in this world, and it's time to take a serious look at the way we're doing things, and there needs to be a drastic shift. And is it going to happen overnight? No. The drug addict in me says yes. right now. But as I know, it's going to be a process, right? Like, and that's something that I have to try to understand, because I'm the kind of guy that comes out swinging both fists, trying to punch down every obstacle in my way. But that's not the right way to approach this. It's got to be a drastic shift, but it's got to be over time.
Brady, can you kind of take us back to, you said February 8th was the last time you used hard drugs. Can you kind of take us back to like what changed in that moment, or like what made you decide like this is it?
Yeah, this is a pivotal moment in my life, actually. It was I guess it was February 7th, around 10:30 at night. I did my last whatever, and I had I was at a point in my life where I was doing like 10 years of crime and drug dealing and all that stuff, and my whole purpose was, I was just not a very good person. At least I wasn't thinking clearly. So girlfriend gets pregnant. Now I'm like, I'd stopped dealing drugs. So now I'm broke, but now I'm like, shit, now we need money. So like my mind went to, oh, I better go do crime to go get money. And I remember I was up here in Muskoka at my girlfriend's parents' house at the time. It's like 10 o'clock at night. And they live like way up on a lake, like way up in the bush. And even the closest highway is like not a very big highway. It's like an off highway in Muskoka. So it's like, and I didn't have a car. So I was driving. And my whole idea was, and I'm just being honest, was I'm going to walk, I'm going to steal a car, because people in that area would leave their keys in their car. It's super easy to take their car. Used to do it all the time. Not there, but other places. And I was going to go do whatever, go steal snowmobiles, go steal ATVs, go do whatever I had to go do, go steal an ATM, crash into a place, chain it up, steal the ATM. Like that was the stuff that I was doing. And I remember to walk down this dirt road at my girlfriend's parents' house and to try to get to this highway. And it was, and I was severely underdressed. It was I was pretty cold. It wasn't like a super cold night, but it was like cold enough. And I was walking, I got to the end of the dirt road. It was probably like 15 minutes. And I get to now the 141 highway in Utterson in Muskoka, and right at Main Hoods Road and the 141. And I remember I start walking down this highway. I didn't get very far, but I remember it being very clear night and there were stars everywhere. And for some reason, I looked up at the stars, and the next thing you know, I was talking to myself out loud. Like, I'm not kidding you. Like, it was like, what the fuck are you doing right now? Like, where are you going? Like, you're going to go steal a car? Who the fuck are you? Like, and then it was the conversation was like, you need, out loud, I'm talking to myself, like, you need to turn around. This is your chance. You're going to turn around, and your life is going to be better than you ever thought possible. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, fucking right. Like, what the fuck is, like, I'm not even kidding you. Like, it was just a profound moment in my life. And it was like, turn around and just trust me. And it was just this overwhelming feeling of trust, where I was like, I was walking and it was happening, walking. And finally I was like, yeah, you know what? Fuck it. I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'm done. Like, I can't do this. Like, I couldn't fathom the fact that I wasn't like, I was going to go steal a car. I was like, for some reason, it was like, I stopped myself. I was like, this is not your life. This was never your life. Turn around and go do something and address what's going on and get honest and do it. And so that was whatever. I believe it was like February 7th. It might've been, that might have happened after, I stopped using. I might've even been 2 weeks clean at the time. Now that I'm thinking about it, might've been a little bit later, but shortly thereafter.
Was that like your spiritual awakening?
Yeah, man, for
sure.
For sure it was. For sure it was. And, while I was in jail just prior to that, like a couple months prior to that, I had really started to look for other things. I started to meet, I'm not trying to get too, spiritually like religion based here, but I didn't have a whole lot of options. I used everything I could. I used the indigenous healing medicines while I was in jail, ceremonies and, we didn't do sweats, but, drum ceremonies, circles, smudging every day. I also went and utilized the chaplain, right? She would come in and we would pray together and do things. And I just remember, like, every morning I would just, in my cell, I would just, pray, like, I just say, like, hey, whatever whatever I have to do, like I'm willing to do it. Just let me. I used to just say, I would tell, and I don't know if I'm regretting it. I don't regret it, but I say, just use me for the greater good. Just use me for the greater good. Let me be of service. Let me be of service. This is what I always used to pray. And, I would always feel, because at my core, I've always been that way. I've always been that way. And I just, and so things have kind of fallen into that. And, it took a lot of soul searching. It certainly wasn't easy. You want to talk about being vulnerable. I shortly after that spiritual awakening, I started my podcast, right? It was originally called Hockey to Heroin, The Road to Recovery. And I didn't have anything. I had a pair of, I didn't really even own anything. I had like a crappy pair of shoes, one pair of pants. I didn't have a computer. I didn't even, didn't have anything. And I borrowed my girlfriend's mom's computer, and I sat in her car, kind of like I'm doing right now, not just my girlfriend's car, but sitting in the car. And I remember I just recorded the very first episode on the worst pair of headphones that I have in right now. It was kind of crackly and whatever. And I just put it out there. And I started to do live videos and share my story. And, I go back and I listen to that. I sounded awful. I looked awful. I had no teeth because I lost these when I was 17 playing for the Swift Current Broncos. And during my addiction, they broke, and I wasn't spending any money on, even if I had 10 grand in my pocket, I wasn't spending the 1,500 or $2,000 to get my teeth fixed. There's no way. It wasn't a thing. And so I just started to do these shows. I started to do videos. I put myself out there. I looked skinny in the face. I got no teeth. I looked like a junkie, right? And people I know were judging me. Like, there's no way this guy's clean. It's just a matter of time till he relapses. I didn't care. I didn't care because I knew that I wasn't the only one. I knew that there was people out there that were likely in a similar situation. And I was hoping that by doing that, it was going to lift some people up and inspire them to maybe, hey, I can do it too. And I believe that, I've had a small impact on some people's lives. I know others have had a significant impact on my life. There's a lot of people doing amazing work. And I certainly had the people that I, looked up to. I had guys like Theo Fleury and Sheldon Kennedy, and these guys come on my show like almost right away to lift me up, like those are the guys that I looked up to, and Dougie Gilmore and so many, Nick Kiprios, and all these guys that I literally was watching their shows while I was in jail. And now I'm having my own show, getting them on there and, giving me their personal number and checking in on me. On New Year's, I got Doug Gilmore telling me Happy New Year's now. And like Darren McCarty's become he was like one of my biggest idols. And now he's like one of my best friends. Like, I don't know. I just took a chance, and very lucky that the vast majority of people saw what I was trying to do, and they did lift me up. And I believe that's at the core of people. I believe we all love a good comeback story, right? We all want to see people do well. Maybe not all of us, but I think the majority of us want to see people do well, right? And it's empowering, right? And you just never know, right? Like how a change in one of our lives can change the world in some sense, because if one of us gets clean, then another person gets clean because of that, and you're helping one more person. Before you know it, the impact of one person turning their life around can have such a big impact on people that person who maybe initially started it or was part of it has no idea just how far it goes. And that's what you see in the rooms of AA, NA, and all the other great programs out there and ways of getting clean. So I think that's what it's all about. It's about helping each other. And like they say in the program, one addict helping another. And it doesn't have to be in an AA or NA meeting or any formal setting. Sometimes it's just about having a simple conversation. It could be with a stranger, because I tell you, I've had more conversations with people like I never thought I would have, like just randomly, because I'm so open and I'll get out there. It's like every time I'm sharing my story, whether it be in a group of big people or if I just meet somebody like down the street and it comes out, they start to open up about something that they've gone through or that their son or their daughter or whatever. And it's like, yes, this stuff is everywhere. So why are we all walking around pretending like it's not? Like, why are we leaving people to feel like they have to do it on their own, or that they should feel like, lower down because they have an addiction? It's a disease, right? Like, if you find out that somebody has cancer, right? we're like, oh, what can we do to help? Like, what, we're raising money, we're doing things, we want to see them get better. Why are we not doing the same for addiction? I'm not saying it's the same, but it has to sort of be looked at as the same. It's not. I do believe, like,
I can
yeah,
touch on that one. Sorry,
yeah,
Brady. I can
yeah,
touch
go
on
ahead.
that one a bit. My girlfriend was pregnant, ended up getting cancer. And that's kind of where my addiction took the turn for the worst. Is I just started drinking to cope. And when I got to rehab and everything, I realized I had underlying mental health problems. And so it all made sense. You kind of like put your stories together, your life story, and it all overlaps, and you can kind of understand what happened. So I can understand that cancer thing. Like, everyone's, like, with me, it was everyone's attention was on her, and I kind of just like fell right down. I almost lost my family, lost everything. Luckily, I'm still with my girlfriend.
Good to
Yeah,
hear.
I can, that one hits home, the cancer thing, to me. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's, I'm not saying that they're one and the same. I'm just using it as an example, and people have to understand that, like, addiction isn't just about like somebody waking up in the morning today and being like, hey, I want to burn my life down. Like, hey, I want to be living like a piece of shit, or I want to feel like a piece of shit. I want to treat people like crap. Like, people have to understand that the power of addiction is so much deeper than that. And sometimes it's not a choice. Like, it's not a choice where unless you've lived it, you'll have no idea. And unless you've lived it, you really shouldn't speak about it. You really shouldn't have an opinion. I'm not telling people to go get the lived experience. Trust me, don't do it. Just don't speak about it. If you're not being positive and you're not looking to lift people up, just keep your mouth shut. Just keep your mouth shut and keep it to yourself, because you have no idea what it's like to live with addiction issues and underlying mental illness. Like, if those people that haven't been there and they want to give their voice, their opinion on it, or judge people, they have no right to do so. Right? I'm not gonna go into the NFL and start telling Tom Brady how to throw a football. You know what I mean? Like, it's, like, he's the guy, he's there, he's living it. I'm pretty sure he knows how to do it. He knows what's going on. People that it's maybe a little different, but I hope people can understand the analogy that I'm making. Like, I have no idea how to really throw a football. Sure, because I've done it as a kid, but I don't really know, or how to play the game of football. So why would I go in there and try to tell people or give my voice, my opinion, when I don't know shit about it? It just doesn't make sense. And people have to remember that, right? Like, most people have no idea what people are going through. So let's just stop pretending like we do, or trying to make assumptions about people and put them down. Let's just assume that they're hurting and assume that they need our help. And let's say, instead of saying, you're a loser, put them down, or talking shit behind their back, let's ask them, how can we help, or what's going on? Can I help you? Like, can I, whatever. Things like that can go a long way. Are we going to save everybody? No. I wish we could, but I believe that by doing that, lives will be saved, and a lot will change, right? Like, if we tackle addiction and this stuff from a different way, like I talked about earlier, and really look at it and try to make a significant change in our society, you'll end up lowering, just save taxpayer dollars from so many things, right? Like, from all the ambulance and stuff calls, all the jail, all the everything. It taxes our system so much, throwing people and going to the ER with mental health or overdose. Like, there needs to be another way to deal with that, and maybe mental health hospitals and stuff like that, where people are actually getting the actual right help, instead of having to come back to the same service, whether it be in and out of jail, not getting the help that they want, or in and out of the ER because they're feeling suicidal, or they're trying to take their own life, until they either do it successfully, or they just keep coming in, but there's nothing really there. It's like, okay, you're there for 72 hours or whatever, you're there for a month, but there's nothing like after. Like, everything's so underfunded and under resourced. So yeah, anyways, I'm kind of all over the place.
I was speaking of, someone going through it. We had Jim Thompson on
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago, and he had talked about, some of the change you'd like to see if he had to, pick something with regards to like NHL and things like that. And he just thought having someone that's been through it there to support the players obviously I think that's something you can agree with. Is that something you'd be interested in doing? Maybe even at the junior level or something like that? If I think you got a great personality for it. You're a young guy and full of energy. I think you'd be a
Yeah,
great
this is my passion, what you're talking about. So I've been very fortunate to be able to do some of this work over the past 3-4 months, doing Zoom calls and stuff with teams, sharing my story and it's been amazing. It's been super rewarding, but it's also been very eye-opening because every time I do it, I get multiple players reaching out to me. I work, I kind of mentor quite a few junior hockey players right now. Some that are pretty prominent in the OHL and WHL that now are talking to me about what's going on with them. So I feel very privileged to be in the position that these kids are kind of looking up to me and leaning on me for some of my advice. It's very humbling, but also I do finally I'm starting to see the value that I can bring, just based on my lived experience, not because I'm smart or special or anything like that. It's just because I've been there, and a lot of these players are going through some of this stuff that I was going through, right? Like they want to go home. They're starting to want to, they're thinking about killing themselves. I had a player, I can't say where, what league or anything, but just get out of the psych ward recently. And we're talking the CHL, this is a guy who's drafted to the NHL, just try to kill himself. And, so there's a lot that we're missing, certainly in the game of hockey. Jim is a friend of mine. He's been on the show, incredible human being. He hit the nail on the head, and I always say it too, with no disrespect to drug counselors or psychologists or whatever that don't have the lived experience but have the piece of paper. To me, again, it goes back to if I want to become a hockey player, am I going to go to a guy that can barely skate but has read about hockey and knows the game but can't really show me how to play? Or do I want somebody that has done it, has the experience, like that doesn't just know the textbook of hockey but knows the different intricacies of what the community is like and all the stuff that comes with it? Again, to me, you cannot beat lived experience. Now there's certain people, like a guy who's just on my show, who have do both. They try to put their lived experience and the schooling. Is that the best? Likely so, but very few people have that. So for me, lived experience is more crucial and important, to be relatable and to say, hey, I've been there, or this is what it was like for me. And then all of a sudden and I've seen it multiple times just with me sharing my story. I'll be talking or I'll do something, and then people will either write me on social media or I'll be talking to them in person, just meeting them for the first time, sit there for 10, 15, 20 minutes, having a conversation. And then all of a sudden they're going into something that they've been through. And then they'll tell me, they'll be like, I don't know why I just told you that. I've never told anybody that my entire life. And this has happened so many times over the last 2 years. And the only reason they're telling me is because I'm being open and I'm being vulnerable and I'm making them feel like they're probably looking at me going like, holy shit, this guy's really off the rails. Little plug to your show, Off the Rails. But and now it feels like, hey, maybe I'm not alone. Like maybe I'm not alone here. And all of a sudden they're feeling empowered. Like I've had a few people, like one guy who carried his sexual abuse trauma for 40 plus years, right? And I was the first person that he told. He's now, and I can share openly, he's now the chairman of the board for the Puck Support charity that we're building. He's a former hockey player. He's an assistant fire chief in Abbotsford. He actually flew out here. His wife's like, what do you want for his birthday? He's like, I want to go meet Brady. I'm like, what? That's like a lot of pressure. I'm like, like you want to come out here for a birthday present? He's like 55 years old. And he actually came out here and surprised me, and I didn't even know it was coming. But it's just one small example. And again, it's not like I'm like, oh yeah, I allowed him to do, I'm great because he was able to do that. And he tells me all the time, he's like, thank you for whatever. It's not about that. It's just about, hey, like, look at the power of vulnerability and support and trying to lift people up and say, hey, this is me. People will always identify, like, we're not that unique, right? Like maybe in some aspects we are, but our stories are not that unique. Like you don't have to look very far, especially in today's day and age with social media, to find people who have gone down that same path or whatever. And so there's such a strength in that. And like, goes back to being vulnerable. I keep bringing it up, but it doesn't just help me or people who are vulnerable. By being vulnerable, you now allow people to also come forward and be vulnerable, right? And there's such a power to that, and it's pretty special to see people, even special, to see, look back, and if I look at my pictures or watch my old shows, just to see even the healing journey and the process of what can happen when you start to implement this kind of stuff into your life, regardless if you're a drug addict or not, right? I just think that by being vulnerable and being honest and being accountable, all these things, you now be able to become your best version of yourself, right? Regardless if you're a recovering addict or not. I think that's, to me, is the most freeing feeling that I've ever had, right? So
Brady, I think the work you're doing is incredible, and I actually think you're helping more people than you know. Yeah, that's all I got to say, really.
Talk support a little bit there. I mean, you touched on it all through the interview, but I think the apparel is pretty cool and what you do within Specialize It, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Thank you. Yeah, Puck support. So when I started to share my story, like 2 years ago, I thought I was unique. I really did. I thought, I'm the only hockey player that, became a fentanyl addict and overdosed and went to jail. And I was a little nervous about, but again, people already knew, like I said, but it was still like, okay, I knew that guys would struggle. I didn't have any idea what I was about to uncover. And I did this story with Sportsnet, and in there I talk about, doing coke one night, the night before playing with Steve Stamkos, first time he put on a Lightning jersey, doing coke with this other guy, left his name out of the story. He's a friend of mine. We lived together in Norfolk in the American Hockey League, played against each other in the WHL. He was an unbelievable hockey player, 2-time WHL All-Star, had some addiction issues. Well, I found out that a guy by the name of Matthew Lazinski passed away. I got a phone call from his best friend and kind of explained his story about he played for the Sioux Greyhounds, got hurt, got addicted to pills, and then, ended up going to jail at 18. Long story, but then never got his life back and ended up dying in 2017 of an overdose. And that was the first player that I heard of a fentanyl overdose. And in that moment, I was like, hey, we got to do something about that. That's kind of where the idea started. Shortly thereafter, I did a Sportsnet article. Then I found out Mitch Fadden passed away. His name was Mitch Fadden. I left his name out originally because I didn't know that he had passed away. I was trying to find him after the story came out, and I was trying to, because we have so many crazy stories together, and I wanted to connect with him. I'm like, you got to read this story. You're going to laugh, blah, blah, blah. And finally, someone messaged me and was like, hey, Mitch passed away in 2017. And I remember I fell to the ground. I was just like, fuck, I was like, this is crazy, like fentanyl again, right? And I overdosed more times than I can count. I always just say 10 times, but it was probably closer to 20 or even more. Like I just, and felt very I started to feel guilty almost that I was still alive, but I also felt that, I needed to do more. I really started to research suicides and overdose in the hockey community. And to date now I've found over 70 players who have, taken their own life. It's 80, I think it's 84 in our database right now. And just had a new one put in there last night. He passed away 2 days ago. A guy I played against junior with just overdosed and died. But I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I wanted to do something about it. And that's where the idea of Puck Support, it was only ever supposed to be a charity to implement, resources and solutions for hockey players, coaches, and parents who are struggling with mental illness and addiction. It was a long road. That was in 2020, almost 2 years ago, and I got that idea to start it. And, it evolved. It's evolved slowly. It actually evolved into a clothing line, as a few of you guys are wearing it. I appreciate that. And, that was a way I didn't have much, right? I was on welfare when I started all this. I had nothing. And Doug Gilmore's brother helped raise some money. And it's like, here, you can do whatever you want with this money. I was like, maybe I'll get this professional video done and whatever. So one video, then what? I was like, I gotta make sure the message is going. So I started this clothing line and started I bought a heat press and started heat pressing shirts in the basement and built a website. And it's gone very well. But it's just one side of it. And, in all of our stuff, I know it's backwards, but they'll have a name of a hockey player who passed away. And as we record this, actually, and he's in my sweatshirt, that's Daniel Miner, former Barrie Colt, passed away of an overdose 1 year ago today. And so all our stuff has a player's name on the inside. They've either taken their own life or died of overdose. And like I said, there's 80 something players, unfortunately, in our database right now. And So that's one side of it, the clothing line, pucksupport.com. Part of the proceeds go back into the charity that we're building. And I'm very happy to say that the nonprofit charitable side of it is coming along. I'm so excited to be able to show people this is not my work. It's just my idea. There's a company out of North Bay that has taken it on and invested a significant amount of money and resources and time. And this is what they do. They build organizations from the ground up. I've been kind of overseeing everything now, building the board of directors. We have doctors on the board of directors and just developing programs and ways to, like, it's incredible what they're doing. I'm not doing it justice, but we're very close to having our first full board meeting and launching the charity. And we're going to be doing a lot of amazing things right across the country and eventually, hopefully down in the United States as well, where there's actual real programs and solutions and people are getting the help and support that they need. And, it's so needed, right? It's so needed. There's so many people out there, and there's nothing wrong with it, that are using addiction and mental illness for own kind of personal gain, right? Recovery coaches and different things. Not everybody can afford that. Certainly not every hockey team or organization can afford to have somebody come in and do things and offer these programs. It's where we see the barriers is, how are we going to pay for this? Like, there's no whatever. But the idea is we're going to raise enough money where, it doesn't matter if you're a small little hockey community in Northern Ontario or you're Toronto in the GTHL, if you don't have the money or if you, whatever, we want to be able to just make this ingrained and they don't have to worry about paying for any of it because we're going to raise the money and we're going to take care of that. We're just going to put it there and say, here's some tools, here's support, here's where you go if you need help. And it's really exciting. And it's going to be a steep hill. It's going to be a long journey. It's going to be a process. Again, it's not now, it's steps to it. But I'm really excited. I really believe we're going to save some lives. And a big part of what we do, like I said, is honoring those that we've lost. And, also on the inside of my hoodie today is also Daniel Miner. I have him in both my stuff today. And just quickly, I'll touch on the Miner family. I didn't know Daniel Miner, but his family is now like family of mine. I'm talking to them this morning. They came up to visit me a couple times. I went to a celebration of life, and they all wear puck. They're all wearing their puck support stuff today with Daniel's name in it, and pretty much all the families of those loved ones are supporting what we're doing. And right from Terrence Tutu, right, he's got a hoodie with his brother's name in it. I'm just grateful, super grateful for you guys for so many reasons. Now that we have been able to connect, we're friends for life as far as I'm considered. And I just encourage you guys to keep this going, not only for yourselves, regardless of how many people are listening or watching. At the beginning of my podcast, I had very little traction. But what I found was that the people that continue to listen and, now I don't put a whole lot into my podcast because I have so much other stuff going on. But I'm getting help with that. So hopefully it grows, not because I care for it to grow. I just hope that it gets through to more people that need to hear it. But what I'm trying to say for you guys is, don't ever get discouraged thinking that you need to get a certain amount of people listening or watching to your show. Because when we're doing this kind of work, and we're trying to, help others and in turn help ourselves, sometimes it's just one person that needs to hear what we're saying, and it can make the world of difference. So that's something that's been key to me is just trying to understand that it's not about helping everybody or about numbers or about anything like that. At the core of it, it's just every day, let's try to help one person if we can. And you guys are doing amazing work here. And like I said, I'm highly encourage you to keep going and support you guys as much or as little as you'd like me to. And I just, like I said, I'm proud of you guys. Stick with it. And I'd just like to extend to you too, that if there's ever a time where things get tough for any one of you guys, related to addiction or life or anything, I'll make sure you guys have my number, my cell phone number, and you can literally text or call me anytime. I don't always answer because my phone's on silent, but I always get back. And sometimes it's nice just to have somebody else in our support networks. And I'm certainly happy to have you guys in mind. So love this conversation, love what you guys are doing. And like I said, anything I can do moving forward, I'm here.
Awesome. Thanks, Brady.
Thank you very much. We're beyond grateful to have you on and share your story.
No, thank you for having me. It's really grateful to, like I said, just to be in a position to do this kind of stuff, and just to be asked on this show is it's honestly, it's an honor. And I've been on quite a few shows, and I've had quite a few shows, you know, with guys that are playing in the NHL or guys that played against in the NHL or whatever. But these are my favorite conversations to have. These are the ones that I believe leave a lasting impact, and you know, the ones that have the capacity to change lives. So thank you.
Okay, awesome. All right, guys, we're going to leave all Brady's contact information in the description below for his personal Instagram, for puck support, and for his podcast, Hockey to Hell and Back. So, guys, thank you very much for listening. Brady, thanks again for joining us.
You're most welcome. And what I'll do for the listeners too is if you go to pucksupport.com, I will make a promo code off the rails, all one word, off the rails. It'll save all the listeners 15% off from here on out. So I'm happy to do that. And thank you so much for the support, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.